Hilchas Tumas Meis Perek Chi. Now maybe just a Hagdama. We learned that if a Yiddish person was buried, a Yiddish mess was buried. So first of all, if he was married almanas, that this is going to be his burial place. So you're not allowed to move this mess. A mess you're not allowed to move, unless if the mess was buried milchatchil almanas, that it's going to be only temporary. So then then you're allowed to move it. Masha'ingan, if a mess was buried, if it's permanent, so then you're not allowed to move it. Now that then is only by a Yiddish mess, not by a Goyish mess. A Goyish mess that was buried, you could move it. It's not a problem. That's din number one. There's another din that a Beis HaKvaros of Yidden is a problem. There could be a din tumah in the Beis HaKvaros. Masha'inkin, a goy, there's no tumah of a Beis HaKvaros. A goy is metame, the goof of the goy, the mess is metame b'mago b'masa. Masha'inkin, there's no musig of a Beis HaKvaros of a chashash Beis HaKvaros. So memele, if you find a mess, now if it's a Yiddish mess, you have to deal with it as a Yiddish mess. And if you find it as a goyish, and then there could be a chashash, you have to worry. Maybe if you find a number of mesim, so then you have to worry. Maybe it's a Beis HaKvaros of Yidden, and therefore you have to be check a room to see whether it's a Beis HaKvaros. Masha'inkin, if it's goyish mesim, so even if it is a Beis HaKvaros, there's no concern because a goyish mesim don't have a din Beis HaKvaros. And also by Yiddish mess, there's an issue whether I could take them. You could remove the mess. Because if this is his mokem akfura, so you're not allowed to move it. Masha'inkin, if it's a goyish a caver, so then there's no concern about moving it. That's what we're learning. Perek Chi, mi show yechoifer basod. Someone's digging in a field. Umotza mesim rabim begumachas. He finds many mesim in one hole. Zal gavze is a betzadze, which is not the way Yidden bury. So therefore, you could assume that it's goyim. That's din number one. Oi shemotza harugim. He found people that were killed. Now, for some reason or other, the Tesa says in Nozid of Samachay that Harugim, we assume that they're Goyim. We assume that they're Goyim. The Ram doesn't say why. But when you find people that are Harugim, so again, we don't consider it a Mokem Akfura. It's not a Mokem Akfura. And therefore, the dinam of finding a caver and being Choshish for other Kvarim doesn't apply. You find Harugim. Oi, Shemotze Mes Yeshiv Ereshiv Ben Birkov. He finds the mess is sitting in a sitting position, or his head is in between his knees. Is Eine Choishish Shema Mokim Ze Beis HaKvaros. He doesn't have to start worrying that maybe this area is about Beis HaKvaros. The fact that he found this pit, or he found these goyim, these people that were harugim, or he found a mason that were Reishim Ben Birkov or Yeshiv, because we assume they're goyim, and by goyim there's no din of worrying about Beis HaKvaros. So what do? So you take this mess which you found in your field, and v'neitul kol offer atichuach shetachtov, and yet also take all the offer atichuach, all the soft ground which is under it, which we also learn now from a special limud, that when you take away the mess, you also take away the offer atichuach. That's what the Gemara says in Nazir, Daf Samachay. V'neitul kol offer atichuach shetachtov. You take all the soft ground which is under the mess, even though you assume that he's a goy. And the chayfer bepsulas akarka shalosh etzbois, and you also go ahead and dig besides the soft ground. You dig into the hard ground shalosh etzbois. Umetzi akel, and you take out all the earth. Ushar asoda becheskes tarek kshahoysa kedem sheimotzi. We assume that the rest of the field there's no kvarim here. We don't start thinking about kvarim. We get rid of these kvarim that you found, and you assume that the rest of the field is tort. And v'afer zeh shalosh etzbois shechayfer. Who are nikra tfusas hames? That's called the tfusas hames. The tfusas hames is like the mixtures. We had tfusas adam, when we had the dam that started going out lifnei amisa, then going out after the misa. So that was called tfusas adam, tfusas dam. So al derech this is called tfusas hames. So that's this din that you get rid of all this earth and you take it away. Now, base. This was talking about you found a soda that was buried. Now the emphasis, this tfusas hames is not tummy. Unless you know that there was netzel of the mess, the stuff that got absorbed into the earth is not really tummy. It's not really tummy. But nevertheless, the din is that tfusas hames has to be removed. That's part of the din. Halacha beis. Now soda shenerga b'harugim, a soda which before we were talking about it, things were buried. You chayfer basoda, you were digging, and you found buried. You found either a pit with mesim, you found a pit with a mess that was Yeshiv or Reishim Ben Birkov or Harugim. We're talking about buried mesim. Now we're talking about mesim that are al pnei soda. Soda shenerga b'harugim is mulaket kol atzom. You go and gather all the bones that are left on the face of the field. And it's teira. V'chein mefana kivrei mitech sadeu. Knows you didn't find a mess. You know about a mess, and l'peil this mess you're allowed to be mefana. Lomer zog. Let's say in a case where it was clearly buried al manas l'fanesek. So a mefana kivrei mitech sadeu. It wasn't a kever shemotza. So then again, malakit kolo atzomis etzem. And there's no din of tfusas hames. Whereas tfusas hames is only a din if you find a mess. If you find a mess, even though the mess is a goy, presumably a goy, there's a din that you have to go ahead and take out the tfusas hames. Masha'in came over here, you didn't find the mess, you know about the mess, and you're being malakad the atzomas of the mess. So mainly you just take them at atzomas. If the mess is al pnei asodas, so it's not buried b'chlal. The mesim al pnei asodas, so it's not buried b'chlal. So then there's no musig of tfusas hames. And al deras, even if there is a mess that's buried, but l'pil it's a mess that you know about, and you're allowed to go ahead and be mafanit. So it's teira. V'chein ber shematilim l'teichin nefolim miharugim. If you have, again, you're not burying him. It's an open bear, it's an open pit where you put nefolim and arugim into this bear, is again, malaket kol atzam shebei etzem vareutor. And then it's tor. So there's no din of tfusas hames. The tfusas hames only applies to a caver which was nimsa. It was a caver, first of all, and it was nimsa. You found this caver, and over there's a special din of tfusas hames. Halacha gimel. So till now we're saying if you find a mess that you assume is goyim, so there's no worry about anything. You just get rid of you can get rid of the mess, and you take also the tfusas hames. You take also the tfusas hames. Not 100% sure what's the gather of taking the tfusas hames. If a person finds a mess that's buried and he wants to rebury it, he's assuming that it's a goy, and he's not interested. He's not interested in getting rid of it. He's interested in putting back the earth into the place where it was. Is there also a din that he has to take the tfusas hames? I'm not really sure. I'm not sure. Halacha gimel. Hoya choifer. Person was digging his field. Umotza mes mushkev kederach shekev ramesim. Now he found a mess over there, and it looks like a regular mess the way you didn't bury mesim. So the din is noitli v'est tfusasi. So he could go ahead and take it v'est tfusasi. Why? Because we assume that it was put there almanas. No, it's a singular mess. It's not a beis hakvaros. So Mistame was placed there almanas to take it away. He doesn't know about it. It was taken take it away. So Mela, there's no isser of taking it away. So Mela noitli v'est tfusasi. V'cheinem notze shnaim. He finds two mason, which again they're both buried like Yidden bury. Is netel kol echad mem utfusasi imei, and then b'chol asodater. So over here, the pastors over here were talking about you want to make sure to establish that there's no tumah in this mess. Over here, the pastors, it's a yid. So you're taking inside the mess, inside the tfusas a mess. I was saying, when you gave the goy over there, where the goy is not really matame, but oil, that's why I wasn't sure. Is the pshat is you're taking the tfusa in order to establish, because you want to have that this soda should be mess free, or there's really such a din. I'm not sure. I'll call upon Nochamal. If you find a yid, if you find a mess, and the pastors of this mess is that he's a yid, so the male is noitloi v'est tfusase. And the same thing, you find two yidden, so you also two mesim, and they look like yidden were buried. So again, neitl kolached mem utfusase imei v'chol asoda teira. Now motza shleisha mesim. Now you find three mesim. So that and kol echad memutl kederach hanikbarim, and they're lying as yidden bury mesim. So it's over here. Im yesh ben zelozeh. Which is Kimlei Mita V'Kivra. We'll get back to this in a minute. Kimlei Mita V'Kivra. So the din is Hareza Choshesh Shema Beis HaKvaros Uzeh. And therefore, V'tzorech Livdik Mina Achron Esenama. Now, it's not so clear to me, the Prati Advarim, but let's just, the Pashtus Advarim to understand it. There's Prati maybe that needs still clarification. The Seder Advarim Amol, it says in the Mishnah in Niholis, Beit Tezayin, Mishnah Gimel. Over there, the discusses, there's a Sof Masechta Nazar. Over there, they're discussing the Seder Advarim they used to bury in a Meira. Meira means that they would dig into the ground. No, a Meira doesn't mean necessarily a Meira that was a cave, a Mechatchila cave. It was a cave that they made a cave, which we would call, let's say, a tunnel, like a type of a tunnel. They would dig into the ground, and that there would be a hole over there. Sometimes the hole was covered, sometimes the hole wasn't covered. And that hole was the Chatzar HaMeira. That was like a Chatzar. And that hole was 6 amas by 6 amas. That was the normal Seder. Then from each side of the hole, let's say to the Meir and to the Mizrach, to the opposite sides of the hole, they would dig a tunnel into the ground. And that tunnel into the ground was 4 amos wide by 6 amos long. So again, we had a chutzner which was 6 by 6 amos, so to speak. Let's say you have steps going down under the ground, and you'd have over there an open area, which was 6 amos by 6 amos. From that open area, they would make a tunnel, like a big vault into the ground, and that vault would be 4 amos wide by 6 amos long, and al derezeh to the other side, to the mizrach and the ma'ariv. So you imagine, you go down these steps, you find yourself in this chutzner, in the chatzar of these ma'ariv. To the right of you, there's a vault which is 4 amos wide and 6 amos long, and to the left of you, there's another vault which is 4 amos wide and 6 amos long. Now, in the walls of this vault, there would be 3 walls to each vault. So you'd go, so in each wall, the longer walls, the walls of 6 amos, there would be 3 mesim in them. There would be 3 mesim in them along that wall of 6 amos. So they would move on those from the beginning of walking into the chutzner. It would be like you'd go a half a amma, and then you would have an amma opening of a vault inside the wall of this big vault. There was into the wall, and you would have a mess. You would have a mess in that wall, stuck into the wall of that vault, of that 4 by 6 amos. And the mess, the place that the mess took up was an amma. There was a half amma, and then there was an amma of the mess, and then there was another amma, and then there was another mess, and then there was another amma, and then another mess, and then there was another half amma which came to that last wall, which was 4 amos wide. So again, you walk into the vault, you have on your left a wall of 6 amos long. After a half amma, you open an opening and you put in a mess. That takes up 1 amma, so we already have 1.5 ammas. Then we have another area of 2 ammas which we don't touch, another area of an amma which we don't touch, and then you put in another mess, an amma away from the first mess, and then you put in a third mess, an amma away from the second mess. So you have one area of a half amma, an area of an amma of empty space, an amma, another amma of empty space, an amma, and another half amma. So you have 3 mesim, each one takes up an amma, 2 empty spaces, which each one is 2 ammas, and then an empty space of a half an amma in the beginning, and a half a space of a half amma at the end. That's with wall, when you walk into your left. Now the wall you're facing, again, you go away a half amma, you put in a mess into that wall, and then that takes up an amma, then you go away an amma, and then you put another mess into the wall, and so you have 2 mesim and 1 amma in between them, a half an amma in between the mess to the wall, to the other wall, and a half an amma between the mess and the other wall. That takes up the 4 ammas. And al derezeh, the 6 ammas are opposite it. That was what was happening in this vault. And then al derezeh, there was another vault on the other side of the chutzner. On the other side of the chutzner, there was another vault. On the other side of the chutzner. So this was Weiss's standard procedure if a person had a beis hakvaros. There was a shtickle small beis hakvaros, maybe a family beis hakvaros. So that was the beis hakvaros where you had a chutzner, a vault. In each vault there were 8 mesim, and memela, so there was 16 mesim altogether. The length of the 2 vaults with the chutzner is together 18 ammas, because it was 8 ammas, 6 ammas long each vault, and the chutzner was also 6 by 6. So it was, and with the mess, maybe it could be a little bit longer, or if you'd go ba'alachsen, if you'd go, let's say, diagonally, so then it would be longer than 18 ammas. It could be 20 ammas. I'll clip on this kamat pratim of how you get to 20 ammas, but that would be 20 ammas. So now again, a person is now after we have this, a person finds in his field 3 mesim. He finds 3 mesim. Now you have to really set it up that these 3 mesim should be, let's say, if he finds 3 mesim right next to each other, notice they're each one is parallel to each other, and they're next to each other, and there's, let's say, an amma in between each one. So from the first mess until the last mess, there's 4 ammas. There's 4 ammas berach. So then we can assume that could be this is part of the vault of a regular beis hakvaros, because it's 4 ammas. It could be 4 ammas. It could be, let's say, if you'll have, let's say, one mess, let's say you'll find 1 mess in one position. Then you'll find another mess, which is maybe, let's say, 2 ammas away. And then you'll find a third mess, which is on the other side. In other words, it's not really in the same row, it's on the other side, and that could be the mess which is lying on a different wall. It's lying on a different wall, and Memela it's 8 amas, because as we discussed, the vault is 6 amas long. So Memela, if you have one mess, the first mess that comes when you walk into the vault on the left, and then you have another mess, which is like the last mess that you find on the right of the vault, so that would be the difference, because we're dealing with a diagonal as well. So over here, the diagonal could be a situation of 8 amas apart. So an 8 amas apart. So you can have the 3 mesim are 4 amas apart. You could find that the 3 mesim are 8 amas apart. So if they're less, they're less. So then, if they're less than 4 amas, so then obviously that's not the way they set up. They can't be less. The 3 mesim can't be less than 3 amas, and they can't be more also than 8 amas. So Memela, you have to understand. L'chura, maybe you found it from a different vault, but I'll quote upon him. If you find a setup which seems to be similar to the setup of the way they set up the Beis HaKvaros, which was either 4 amas apart or 8 amas apart, so that creates again. You need to know kama protim, exactly how it's situated. These mesim, these kama shitas. But I'll quote upon him b'chlolos. If you find 3 mesim, and those 3 mesim are apart from each other, the third and the first are apart from each other, either 4 amas or 8 amas, depending on how they're situated. So then there's a concern that maybe this is part of a vault, and 2 vaults, and a chotzer, which are all mesim over here. So this is like a Beis HaKvaros. This is a Beis HaKvaros. And maybe there's other vaults, and there's other vaults behemshech to it. There could be all kinds of chashas. So Memela, that creates a reason to suspect that there are mesim here. And Memela, you have to go ahead and be beidik 20 amas. What's the cheshbon of 20 amas? As we said, the chatzar of these vaults were 6 by 6. The length of each vault was 6. That 6, Memela comes out 6, 6 and 6 is 18. And then in the diagonal, we'll say is a cheshbon of 20. That's bechlol is the inyan. Beprotius, it needs a lot, there's a lot of details in the protius inyan. But that's bechlolus inyan. So it's nachamo. Let's read again. So let's start again from the halacha base. A person was digging a field, and he finds a mess, and the mess looks like a yid. So the din is that he could take it, and since he doesn't know about it, so it's a mess she'eni yadua. So we can assume that it was buried. It wasn't part of a Beis HaKvaros, so it was buried only temporarily. So since it was a found mess, we learned before, if it's a mess that he knows about and he's being mafana the mess, so there's no din of tfusa. But there's a special din that if you find the mess, so then there's a din of tfusas hames, and that tfusas hames is neitli ves tfusas. Al derez, if you find 2 mesim, and also the pastors are that they're yidden, so again you take it ves tfusas. Masha'enken, if you find 3 mesim, and those 3 mesim are in a set up in a way that they could be a Beis HaKvaros, that would be between 4 amas and 8 amas, as we said. Between the third and the first is either 4 amas, which would mean maybe they're both on the same side of the vault, or they're 8 amas. Maybe one would be like on this side of the vault, and the other one would be either on the wall, which is opposite, perpendicular to this wall, or maybe also parallel to this wall, but on the other side and diagonally across the vault. I'll quote upon him. You have to know exactly what would be the exact seer. So if there would be either arba amas, a 4 amas. Now the Rambam adds kimlei mita v'kivra, which is the size of the mita and the people that bury the mita. That's the size of 8 amas. Now in the Mishnah, there's a whole issue. The Mishnah also says this loshen kimlei mita v'kivra, and the many Mefarshim take out that loshen kimlei mita v'kivra. I mean, from the Rambam, the Rambam is saying it here. The Rambam is writing kimlei mita v'kivra. So I'll quote upon the size of a mita is 4 amas. That's the size of a mita. And the kivre that are also on both sides of the mita take up each one another 2 amas. So Memela comes out, that's the cheshbon of 8 amas. Is I'll call upon Mariza Cheshish, Shema Beis HaKvaros. So that causes a chash that maybe it's a Beis HaKvaros. And therefore, what do you have to do? If it's Tzarech Livdik, Mino Achrin, Esnama. So knows there's 2 ends. There's 1 mess on one side, and there's a 3 mesim. So aside from the 1 mess, in other words, let's say 1, 2, 3. So from the third, you have to measure 20 amas in this direction, in that direction. In those, you don't know where the mess is starting, where the Beis HaKvaros is starting, or now that is in the other direction. Is sarech livdik min ha'achrim esrim. You have to be beidik from the last mess, Esr Mama, Shehain, what's the cheshbon of Esr Mama? Shehain kishtei mayres v'chotzer shebeneim. That's what we just said before, that there was a chotzer, that the Seder Advarim of the Kfura was a chotzer, and from each chotzer came out a mayra. So you have to be beidik this cheshbon of 20 amos. If I say these 20 amos, you're beidik outside these mesim. In other words, you have 3 mesim. So the 20 amos would be these 3 mesim are part of those 20 amos. But I'll call upon we're beidik in both directions. We're in both directions from the mesim, both mesim. You have to be beidik 20 amos to the opposite side. Shehein kishtei mayres v'chotzer shebinei. Now, if you made the bedik of 20 amos and you didn't find any mess outside of these mesim, is so then we assume that those 20 amos that you obeyed are teres, even though they're next to kvaris. In other words, you had 3 kvaris over here, which lechura was like a shtickle shchunas kvaris, which would assume that maybe that's a reason to suspect that there is a beis hakvaris over here, there's a whole beis hakvaris. But nevertheless, we assume that since you found 3 kvarim taka together, but lepil you obeyed the 20 amos next to it, so we can assume that in those 20 amos there's no kvarim. So memela everything is torah. Now matzah mes echad b'seif esr mama. While you were being beidik, you didn't find anything, but at the end of esr mama you did find a mes echad. Then tzorech livdek mimenu esr mama sacheres. Because we're assuming that maybe that mess that you found is an extension of those 3 mesim that you found originally. And maybe even though you didn't find any mesim, but lepel, there was a beis hakvaris there. Maybe if there's a beis hakvaris over there, could be there's an extension of that beis hakvaris weiter. So maybe you have to keep on going. You have to be beidik another 20 amos. Because over here we started off with a shchunas hakvaris and we found another mess b'teich esr mama. So there's a concern that maybe that's a hamshech of a beis hakvaris. That's talking about if you found 3 mesim that were 3 mesim yidden, because they were buried like yidden are being buried. So therefore they're established as shchunas hakvaris, and therefore we're choishes that maybe there's a beis hakvaris, and therefore you have to be beidik the cheshbon of 20 amos, and the cheshbon of 20 amos is, as we said, like the cheshbon of a chotzer shtei mayres. Now v'hem hoya echad me'elu shematze betchila a besof harug a yoshev a mushkav shlei kedartke, which means sheyareisha ben yakesef. So in other words, if one of the people that you found, the original 3 people, or one of the people, let's say you went ahead and you obeyed the 20 amos, and we're saying at the end of the 20 amos, or during those 20 amos, you found another person, and you found him, so we're saying you have to extend another 20 amos. But medvar mamurim, that you have to start being beidik 20 amos, or you have to start being beidik extending further than the 20 amos, if the 3 original people you found were yidden, because they were lying like yidden are lying when they're buried, and al derezah, the person you found, which is within 20 amos, is also lying like a yid lies. However, if you found in the original people there was a person that was lying not like it, he was a echad me'elu shematze b'tchilei b'seif, was a person that was a haruk. He wasn't a person that you assume he's a yid, because somehow or another a haruk you don't assume he's a yid, like we said before. Psatesva says a haruk is not regular to be a yid. Or he was a yeshiv or a mushkav shli kedarke sheyiresha ben garkesav. Either one of the original 3 people, or this person that you found within 20 amos. So then the din is ain't a beidik esr mama. You don't have to be beidik esr mama based on this original this person that was one of the original 3, or this person that was found in middle, which would normally, if he looked like a yid, he would cause you to bury another 20 to check another 20 amos. But over here you don't have to check. Ela noitlan vestfusasim, you take them vestfusasim bavad, which is like we said before, when you find a caver, even though the caver is a goy, so you have to be noitel vestfusasim. Shecheskosim goyim, with cheskes is goyim, there's no problem to take it, and memela, there's no problem to take it, because if it's yidden, if it's a shkunas kvaris, you're not allowed to take them. You wouldn't be allowed to take them because they're yidden. And memela, neitlam vestfusasim bavad shecheskosim goyim. That's this thing. Halacha dal. Hagoyim. Now, the pastors, if you find 3 people that look like Yidden, also you can't take them. Because you can't take a person if there's 3. Because if you found 1 Yid or 2 Yidden, so the Rambam said before, Neitel kol echad memut v'sasiyimei. Masha'enken, if you found 3, so then it doesn't say that you're allowed to take him. Then you have to be choishish, maybe it's a beis hakvaris. And then you're choishish, but it doesn't say that you could go back and take him. You can only go back and take them if one of them aren't yidden. Halacha dalet. Hagoyim einlam tumas kvaris. The whole musik of tumas kvaris don't apply to goyim. Hail ve'einlam netame be'el. So therefore, a negeh bekivran tor, even the negeh a caver of a goy is tor. Achi yiga ba'atzma shel tuma yisana. And we learned before really that the gather of a caver that's metame is not karka elam. The din of caver that's metame is only the binyan which is on top of the caver. Halacha hey. Now mess shechoser aver. If you have a mess that's missing an aver, she'im yinotel menachai yomus. So over here is also psadin ainli tfusa. There's no din of tfusa. There's no din of tfusa. That's the first din we learned before, that if you find a mess, and that mess we assume is a goy, so the din was that he has a din of tfusa. You have to take him v'es tfusase. Now we're learning if you have the mess that's missing an aver, which that aver, if he's missing that aver, he can't live, so ainli tfusa. And also v'lei shchunas kvaris, the din of shchunas kvaris, that if you have three people, and one of them is someone that's a horror, is missing an aver, so he doesn't create shchunas kvaris. Also you have to understand what's the gather advar. Again, you have to snem on that someone that's missing an aver, which if he's missing it, he wouldn't be able to live. We assume that he's not a yid. Some people say because a yid would bury those ivarim together with that person. So we're assuming that it's not that aver was lost. It's not, since he was a goy, so they buried him without the aver. Mashenkin, if he would have been a yid, so they would have buried him together with the aver. Al kol parm, that's what it says. Misha chaser aver. Shem yinotu menachai yomo. So there's two din. First of all, it's saying ainli tfusa. That din that we found a mess, so there's a din of tfusas a mess, so that doesn't apply. And also v'lei shchunas akvaris. And then we say meisam and emtsoim gluim apnei asada is ein lem shchunas kvaris. That's l'chore pashat that ein lem shchunas kvaris because there's no kvaris over here. He's apnei asada, and also v'lei tfusa, which is really what we learned before l'chore already. Now lach aleph v'lei tfusa, there's no din of tfusas a mess. El malaket etzem, you go ahead and you gather together the bones. V'hakil tor, and everything is tor. And v'hanigbar shalei b'rshus, someone that was nigbar shalei b'rshus is yeshli tfusa, shchunas kvaris. There's no din of shchunas kvaris. So in other words, if you, Marshall, know that this field didn't have a caver, and then all of a sudden you see that there was nigbar shalei b'rshus, that the shchunas kvaris. In other words, you know that it was nigbar shalei b'rshus, so that there's no din of shchunas kvaris. Shchunas kvaris is only when you find mesim. That the pastors were nigba b'rshus, and the owner owned it, and he was mekaber it. So then we're chayshish. Maybe there's a beis hakvaris here, but the fact that someone was nigba here shalei b'rshus is not going to add to the shchunas kvaris. Look what it's pashat. And also, but yeshli tfusa, he has tfusa. So now you can be mefana this caver. A nigba shalei b'rshus, you can be mefana the caver. But on the other hand, there's a din of yeshli tfusa ve'in the shchunas kvaris. Look, that's the pshat. Halacha Vav. Echad ha-meitzah shleisha mesim kedarkum betchila. That we said before that if a person finds three mesim, so that has a din of shchunas akvaris, and that warrants that you should go ahead and be beidik eser mamba. Oisha motza shleisha kuchim. You found three kuchim, and those three vaults in that ma'ara, three kuchim. A kuch unekia umara. You didn't find three kuchim. You found a kuch, which is a place to place a vault, to place a mess, unikia, which is like a crack over there. Also, there's concern that maybe over there's a mess, even though you didn't actually see the mess. Umara, and you also said some ma'ara, which over there is also vices a mokum for a mess, which I'm not really sure the tzir of the ma'ara is harezu shchunas kvaris. So it's a shchunas kvaris. In other words, the case that we said before, you found three mason kipshute, but over here, even though you didn't find the mason, you have to understand what's the havanas advarim over here. You didn't find the actual mason, but since you found the kuch, the kuch is a place where they put mason, so that's also me'oyer shash that there's a shchunas akvaris here. Now that is if you have the three kuch, nikio maras, and it's a shchunas akvaris, and then that creates a reason to check eser mamba. Now motzei shnayim, you found two of them you didn't know about. V'echad yodua, you knew about one, but you didn't know about the other two. So now you have three. You knew about one, and now you found the two. So he says, Yeshlem tfusa. So those that you found have a tfusa. Because we said a kever hayedua doesn't have a din tfusa. The din of tfusa doesn't apply to a kever hayedua. That's what we learned earlier. Masha'inkin over here, you found two, so they have a din tfusa. Abeve'elem shchunas kvaris. There's no din of shchunas kvaris, because shakever hayedua eineis shchuna. Kever hayedua is eineis shchuna. So therefore, you're allowed to be mafaner also. It's like just like a kever she'eni yedua. If there's only two of them, you're allowed to be mafanet. and they have a din tfusa, so that is over here. If you have one that you knew about, whether you're allowed to be mefander or not, it doesn't make a difference. And the other two is two that you never knew about, so maybe it's like as if you found two. And since you found two, so those two, there's a din yeshlam tfusa, and they don't create a shchunas akvaris. This din of shchunas akvaris, when your person finds three mlechatchila, who should tzarech b'dika? That's when you need b'dika. The ikar is if you find three kvarim that you weren't aware of, so that creates a din of shchunas akvaris, and you have to go ahead and be beidik esrim amma. Masha'inkin, if you find two that you didn't know about it, even that's in addition to another one that you knew about it, that doesn't create a din of shchunas akvaris, and therefore it doesn't warrant, you should go ahead and be beidik esrim amma. Now, case of beidik esrim amma, shamarna, when you say you're beidik esrim amma, how you beidik esrim amma, you have to go like a straight path of esrim amma. The choifer achu magia l'sela, you have to go ahead and dig deep enough until you reach a place which is stone, a lipsula, or you reach a place where it's obvious that no one ever dug so deeply. In other words, it's firm ground that no one ever dug. V'hi karka nira she'ein avuda. That pshat psulas karka means karka which is obvious that it was never worked on. If a person goes down deep, even a me'am or b'matzah cheres, you find the shards. Obviously, it means people were there, something was there. Is arezek b'tchila, so it's as if you're starting from the snai and you have to start digging weiter. And notice the fact that you dug so deeply does make a difference. V'tzarech lahamik, you have to keep on going until you reach an area where no one dug there yet. It's hard ground, and only then could you say that you were beidik and you know there's nothing down here. Now, if you reach water, this is arezek psula. So obviously the mess didn't go down further than water. In other words, you want to go ahead and dig to make sure that there's no mason down here. So there's a possibility. Maybe they dug a tunnel under the ground and they went very deep under the ground. I mean, maybe there could be a mess under the ground. So until you reach a place where you could see that no one ever dug here, so then that's called kipsula, and maybe you don't have to dig any further. Halacha zayin, ain't it tzarech lachber telem echad mitchilos esrim ad seifim. You don't have to dig a complete furrow from the beginning of the 20 amas until the end of the amas. Ella choifer amma alama. You dig the amount of space of an amma alama, and then uminiach amma, you leave an amma that's not dug, and then v'chefer again amma alama, and then again uminiach amma ad seifim she'em ben kever lekever pachas miyama. There can't be between one kever and another kever less than an amma. So even if you leave an amma that you didn't dig, so bepashtus, if there's a kever there, you'll find it. So the fact that you left an amma that you didn't dig is not a concern, because you'll definitely hit that kever, because aim bin kever lekever pachas miyama. So they'll definitely, I know, the amma mitzumtzum. We're not going to be choishes that maybe this amma in between the kvarim and you didn't even reach it. And those, since aim bin kever lekever pachas miyama, so we can assume that if every amma you go ahead and dig, so bepashtus you'll hit the kever. That's this din. Halacha ches. Now hoya boidik v'higia b'tocha esrim l'nor elishlulis. In other words, you're being boidik away from this place where you found the mason, and you reach a river, or you reach a water canal, or a place where people walk. So then we're not choishes that over there, the place where there's water, or this place where there's this water canal, or there's derech harabim, that there's a kever amesim, there's a kever. It's mainly after, you don't have to be beidik any further. In other words, if from this area, and you're going 20 amas, and you found this nor shlul samayim or derech harabim, you don't have to worry. Obviously, the shchunas akvaris is not going beyond this nor shlulus or derech harabim. Halacha tes hamoitzi offer zeshel b'dika. Now this offer, you're going ahead and checking 20 amas. So when you go ahead and you're taking out this offer shel b'dika store, there's no problem. You want to use lessly this offer, so this offer is store. Elim kain motzet tumah b'makom shechafer. If you find tumah over there, so then there's a chash that over there there's tumah. Notice if you find tumah even later on, so we're choishish on the entire 20 amas, that maybe it's a shchunas akvaris. So Memela we're choishish that, but Masha'inkin, while you're checking, you don't really have any cheskas tumah over there. So even though there's a din that because we had a shchunas akvaris, you have to go ahead and check these 20 amas, but lepel, until you find something which is actually tummy, you're not choishish that maybe this offer, this tum in there, and maybe you don't have to worry about it. Elim came matzah tumah b'makom shechafer. Avol kedem shiyimtza, but before you find any tumah b'makom shechafer, so there's a din nachmo. You found the shchunas hakvaros. You found 3 mesim. Because of those 3 mesim, there's a chash that maybe there's mesim somewhere within the next 20 amas, and you're going ahead and digging within those 20 amas with the chash that maybe there's mesim there. So the din is that even though you're digging over there, and even though there's the offer that you took out of there, the offer is tar, and the digger is tar, everyone is tar, because the fact that you have to be bleidik is not enough of a reason to make you tummy or to make the offer tummy. That's the din. Avol kedem sheyimtza is eichel betruma, because there's no cheskas tuma. Vam befaker begal. Someone that there was a gal, there was a something fell, or there was a house fell down, and there's a person under the house, and you're going looking for that person that's under this house. Is ein eichel betruma. So over there he doesn't need truma. Sharei yidei vaday. Sham mesim mishtal tachas hagal. Sham tachas hagal. He knows there are mesim there. He just question where it is. He's not really sure. He touched those mesim, but he knows there's mesim there. So that's why there's a concern of tuma. Is nachamo. When a person has a shchunas hakvaros, so there's a chash that maybe there's tuma. Also in the 20 amas that are further, in order to mitama those 20 amas, you have to go ahead and be beidik. But that chash is not enough to make you tummy. So even though you're in the middle of being beidik and the offer which is coming out of this place, but nevertheless, since there's no real yisod that there's tumah there, so therefore it's your becheskas tara unless you find something that's stomach. Masha'inkin, when you know that in an area there's a tumah, the question is only if you came into contact with it. So over there the din is that you're choshen that you're tummy. Halacha yud gal tummy shenis arev b'shnei galim teirim. Person has 3 galim. There's 3 piles of rubble, and he knows that on one of them there's a person under there, died, but he doesn't know which one. So there's a gal tomish and a arev b'shnei galim teirim. He doesn't know which one it is. Now bodek echad memomotzi tor. He went ahead and was beidik one of the galim, and he sees that there's no mace there. So therefore, who tar? So that gal is tar because he was beidik it. The other 2 are suffik because we don't know which one the tummy is in. Now, bodik shnayim v'nim tzu teirim. If he found he was bathing both of them, and he found that they were both tor, this is hein teirim v'ashlishi b'cheskas tuma. So then we could assume that the tumah is in the 3rd. However, bodik shloshtem u'motzah tor. He went ahead and was bathing all 3, and he found that all 3 were tor. So maybe he didn't find it. So over here is kulam b'cheskas tuma. Over there, they're all b'cheskas tuma, because we know that there was one in one of them, and we don't know which one, and we see that we were bathing all 3, and we didn't find any tumah. So we're chayshish, maybe we weren't beidik properly. You have to go ahead and be beidik this gal and go down and dig under this gal. That maybe until you reach a place where for sure that this is a place where no one ever reached anymore, and from deswegen you ascertain that there's no tumah in any of these galim, so then the yeshloshim teirim. So you have to have a more proper b'dika. The b'dika, original b'dika, you have to understand. Mehechatei said someone was buried here. There was a gal here. There was a gal, someone died under the gal. Nevertheless, we have to go ahead and ascertain that there's no tumah, not in the gal and not under the gal. So only then could we go ahead and, since we know that there was tumah, we don't know what happened to it, because all 3 of them were nivdak and lepel, they're all tar. So we're not sure, we're not really 100% sure that the tumah was nela. When you go ahead and you beidik all 3 ad psulas akarka, so then we have to say it must have been eaten up. Must have been an animal ate it up. Halacha yudalef ber shematilin l'teichi nefolim. You have a pit that people throw their nefolim in there. Is a mile olav, someone that's mile on this pit, tummy dintera. He's tummy dintera. Va'af al pi shechulda ubardlis mitzuyin sham. So l'chura maybe the chulda ubardlis ate it up. Is ein sofik meitzim devade. The possibility that the chuldo bardless ate it up is not enough to take it out of the fact that vade. We know that Nephilim were put in there. That's talking about if we know Nephilim put it in there. And now the question is, you want to be metired based on the possibility that the chuldo bardless ate it up. Aval mipila sham isha nefil. An isha was mapul and nefil. Ve'en yodua mipila davar amatame leipila. You're not really sure if what she was mapul was really something which is matame. Is because it's a suffix, meitzim de suffix, and we're not really sure that there was tumah there, and now there's another suffix that maybe the bardless ate it up, so mele suffix, meitzim de suffix. Halacha yud beis. Davar yudua Shekol elu atumis ukiyetz shei mishum safik is arei hein shel devrei. The whole musik of something being tummy besafik is only on a derabbanan dika level. Vein tummy min atera ela mishenitma tumas vadei. The only time a person is tummy min atera is only when a person was nitma tumas vadei. Avol kol ha-sveikas. Any musik of sveikas, bein betumas, bein macholas asuris, bein ba'arayis v'shabosas, all the musagim that you're concerned that maybe it's usher, maybe it's tamei, maybe it's usher, maybe she's an erva, is all these dinim ein lam elam midivri seifim. This whole iser is only based on midrabban. That's the famous Rambam. The Rambam holds that the musig of safik minatera, safik deiraisa l'chumra is not on a minatera midika level. It's only on a drabanan dika level. Midrabanan safik deiraisa l'chumra, but minatera safik drabban midiraisa l'kula. I'm sorry, nachmal. Midiraisa is safik deiraisa would be l'kula. It's only midrabanan. The safik deiraisa is l'chumra. Now here the Rambam, this is in a Chotzi Eagle, there's a whole issue whether or not this shtikol Rambam is a emes is a girsa nechena. V'afal pi kain dover shechayovn al deinik skoris is sveike osem minatera. Sharei eise chayav osem tolu. The kasha is if the Rambam holds that a suffix deiraisa is minatera lekula, and it's only midrabono lechumra. So the question is, a person has l'mashal suffix chaylev and suffix shuman. There's suffix chaylev and suffix shuman. So the din is if a person ate suffix chaylev and suffix shuman, he has to go ahead and bring an oshim toli. He has to bring an oshim toli because he doesn't know if he ate chaylev. But l'chure, even if the din is that a suffix deraisa is minatera lekula, so l'chure he has suffix chaylev and suffix shuman. So l'chure will ask a rav, are you allowed to do it minatera? Minatera, you're allowed to do it. So if it's minatera, you're allowed to do it. How could it be that the Torah is saying that if you did it, you have to bring an oshim? You didn't do anything wrong. Before we learned that the din that you did it, you bring an oshim is only if you did it b'shegik. We learned in Hilchos Gogas. Masha'inkin, if you did it b'meizitz, then you won't bring oshim. You won't bring an oshim. That's muchach l'chura and Rambam. That this din is only b'shegik. But l'chura, even if you go ahead and ask a rav, the rav will tell you allowed to do it because l'pel it's only a suffix. So that the Rambam is asking a kasha on his shita. So that the Rambam says no, that din is talking about a davar is a chayav al zdei nikor sveiki yosem minatera. No, something that's a chiyuv koris. So a suffix chiyuv koris is osem minatera. So it comes out like this: that the shittas Rambam is according to this girsa that a suffix deiraisa, if it's a isa koris, is minatera lechumra, and if it's not an isa koris, so then it's minatera lekula. That's how the Rambam says it here. But many say that this girsa is not a girsa nechena, and the emes teretz to this kasha is that there is a difference if it's huchzek yisur or lei huchzek yisur. The whole din of the Rambam that a sveike deiraisa is minatera lekula is only in a case where there's leis chazek yisura. We don't know that there's a cheskas yisur. Masha'inkin in a case where there's chaylev v'shuman, so over there's a cheskas yisur. So over there the Rambam wouldn't say that sveike deiraisa minatera lekula you could go ahead and eat even though you might be eating shuman. You might be eating chaylev. In a case when you find a piece of fat, so you don't know if this is chaylev or shuman, so it's not as chazik yisura. So then we say sveike deiraisa minatera lekula. Masha'inkin, if you know that there's a isur over here, al derech zel moshe, we had the case b'negeya if you had a woman that was definitely a isha ish, and now there's a suffix whether she became a migureshes trei utrei. So over there also the Rambam said that's called as chazik yisura, and therefore there's a chiyuv hashim toli because chiyuv hashim toli is only by his chazik yisura, not without his chazik yisura. And that would be the teretz. And that din of his chazik yisura is also lav davke by chayvik krisis, even if it's not chayvik krisis. I'll call upon him. So k'meisha biyanu b'hilchas yisura bio become mekemis that the Rambam writes that the din of sveika deiraisa l'chumra is only a derabbanan dikadin and not on a deiraisa dikalav. Derech Agav, in this din that the Rambam holds that sveika deiraisa is minatera l'kula. So b'negeh sofik tum rishus hayochid sveiki tomei. So the shaila is this din of sveiki tomei a deiraisa dikadin or it's a derabbanan dikadin? And that's good for the parshas we learn it out from Seita. That by Seita we say that our Seita, a suffix Seita, has a din of a vade tuma, and she's also minatera lebaila. It's not a suffix; it's a din vade. So this din of suffix tuma b'shus hayochid sveiki tomei. So there's a din in achreinim whether or not that din, according to the Rambam, is on a deraisa dika level, or that din, even that din, according to the Rambam, is only on a Drabbanic level. And the fact that we learn enough from Seita is only a smach to Baum.